Hello, hello, hello. Good to see you. You get fairy dust, I get fairy dust. I got Ariel, my kitty, and Amelie, she gets fairy dust, and all animals here on your end get fairy dust. We just need so much fairy dust, especially reading this fucking book. Like, what? Of course, I still have my Barbie sticker on. Just makes it easier. I suggest maybe that's a tool, is we make this book less intimidating. The Body Keeps the Score less intimidating by putting a sticker on it. Um, I don't know, I don't think I mentioned this here, but my friend at Be a Hope Dealer on Instagram, oh, I love it. Okay, she saw this in, I think it was Magnolia magazine. Like, somebody had this on their wall. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Can you imagine having this piece of art? It's probably Matisse. It kind of looks Matisse-y, but can you imagine? Like, every day, like walking through your living room's a trigger. Like, I'm sorry, no, thank you. So let's put her back on here. There you go. And remember, only animals are safe. Anyway, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I am so glad you're here. Let's talk about why we're here. Okay, let's see. All right. Oh, before I do that, let me just say, protect your anonymity. This is being recorded, and so it'll be available to anybody who wants to watch it. I'm going to stick it up on YouTube. It'll also, for those of you who are already members, it'll also be on the membership website, so you don't have to go to two different places. But protect your anonymity. If you want to talk to me, you can use a different name, or you don't even have to introduce yourself. And if you want to change your Zoom name so nobody sees that, do that now. And okay, so I am a licensed therapist. I'm Elizabeth Kupferman. I'm a licensed therapist, but this is not therapy. This is a CPTSD kid who's living in a grown-up body, doing her best, doing her own personal growth work. And I'm here to share my experience, strength, and hope, and any tools that I've gained along the way with you. I am one of the, yeah, I got that. Okay, so it's really important. Like, so one of the things I pride myself on, thing to do in the internet world, is I try to keep this meeting as safe as possible. And one of the ways we do that is we each model healthy communication behavior. And one of the ways that a simple way to do that is in the chat, we only, and some people don't like a chat, so don't even look at the chat if you don't want to, it's not necessary. But if you want to support somebody who has a question or talks today, you can just say something using I statements. I statements are me statements. We never give advice. We say something like I went through that too, or we can just say like, thank you for saying that, really resonated, or whatever, something like that. We don't say like, you should read this book, or you should do that, or this, or the other. And we wouldn't even say like, you should join Elizabeth's membership. Like, we don't even do that. We just simply say like, this helped me, or I, okay. And also that is the magic in the whole wide world. Like, if we could just use I statements, it just changes everything. So this is a place where we practice and model and all that. Okay. If somebody talks, we don't do a thing called crosstalk, which if somebody talks and say like, I have this problem, I have ADHD, or I have this, or this is my trauma, we don't say, oh, when so-and-so was talking, we don't mention their name. We can say, I have a similar issue to what was spoken of earlier, or something like that. That just keeps everybody safe. And I don't see, so don't DM me because I don't see it at all. You can imagine I'm focused on you and focused on what I'm going to teach, so I won't see that. And I don't see the chat until afterwards. You're here because, for two reasons. One, I am it's not really a sales pitch. I'm just gonna invite you, if you would like to join my secret membership. It's $25 a month for a 2-hour class once a month. And at some point I probably will add another class, Q&A class, because that's fun too. Just answering questions and people getting coaching. And I like to keep the price low, but I also thought like this information is so needed. And these trauma books are so triggering and hard to read. That is why this exists, and why I'm doing it in the membership too, is I have the disease of buying the book and never reading it, because it's just too hard to do it alone. And so if I have somebody to do it with me, somebody to support me, somebody say, yeah, this is actually really hard, it just makes it easier, because I would like to have the information, and I want to have the information to change my life, not just to have the information here. And this book is still on the top 10 list, New York Times. And so it's like, we should probably know what's in it, because it is clearly part of our culture now. You don't get through a day of being on social media and having the algorithm that we all must have, and not see a reference to the body keeping the score in some shape or form. Let's see. As you can already tell, like, this is a down-to-earth class. Like, the person you see being silly on TikTok and Instagram is the same person that's here. I like to use humor, and I love a metaphor. The sillier the better, to help me understand things. So that's what you would see in the membership too. I'm going to go ahead and stick that link in the chat, just if you would like, just to see. There's not a ton more of information, because it's so, I just started it. I started it, and it literally is, wait, where did you go? Where's my people? Hold on, there you are. See, I cannot do more than one thing at a time. Let's see. So there's that. Okay, so there's that. So we're done with that. If you would like, if you are not on, you have this either because you subscribe to my newsletter, which that's mainly who's here, or somebody who subscribed shared their link with you to be here. I didn't really talk about it anywhere else. But if you would like to be subscribed to my membership, if you just want to put your email in the chat, and you don't even have to go to my website, just to get I have a newsletter where I do talk about, and my focus for a while are going to be lessons from The Body Keeps the Score. So you can just put your email in the chat. Maybe you don't want to fill it, maybe that's too personal, so maybe don't do that if you don't want anybody else to see your email, but you could just go to my website and sign up there. And if you do that, there's a 4-day class on the cycle of abuse, which is one of my top 3 tools I use in my life when shit's going down. Okay, let's do this. I think this is just, I read this last time we had the free class. Oh, by the way, the free classes, like the free ones that I'm doing that are open to anybody, they're always new. It's not just repeated the same thing over and over again. I keep the whole thing in order. And so like, this will be new information than what we talked about last time. So it's not just like rehashing stuff, but I do think this is helpful to remember like why we're here. And here we go. We see, this is a quote from, where is this from? Okay, this is a quote from The Body Keeps the Score. We will see that all the imprints from the past can be transformed by having physical experiences that directly contradict the helplessness, rage, and collapse that are all a part of trauma, and thereby regaining self-mastery. That's my mission. That's why I'm here, is that's all we're trying to figure out how to do, is slowly but surely, and sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, gain self-mastery over trauma. Like, we don't have to have the trauma and rewounding keep being in charge of our life. So that's what we're doing here. Okay. Let's talk. So it's so funny. Like one of my things is like, so one way to read this book is flight mode. There's lots of ways to read this book, but not take in any of the information. And that's flight mode. And that's like, okay, I read it, done. My trauma's healed. I take things really, it's more helpful to me what I want and how I work. And what has worked for me is like really taking out like what is actually helpful, what can I use in my life. I think one of the pieces of resistance, which is what I wrote about in last week's newsletter, of like, is this for me? Like, was my shit really that bad? Like, is this really a big deal? Like, my parents weren't that awful, and it's true. My only criteria for trying to do anything to heal, because we don't need to blame anybody, we don't need to think anybody else is bad. But did shit go down or not? And if shit went down, okay, welcome. You deserve a seat here. Like you get to be here. Like if shit went down, you get to say, you probably have CPTSD. Also, if you are here, you probably have it too, because people who don't have it wouldn't be interested in this at all. Okay, one second. Hold on, I need to close this. Okay, so we're going to talk about page 14 through 17. That's right, just 3 pages, but there's so much there that we can take to our personal work. And also, if you have any questions about this section, please ask me. Okay, so this is the part of the chapter where he's talking about being numb, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. Again, some of you, this is old hat. My cat says hi. For some of us, this is like new information, and so it's kind of helpful to, and that's also just helpful for me too, to remind myself of these definitions. But van der Kolk says one of the worst of Tom's symptoms was that he felt emotionally numb. And I spent my life like this, and I did things to make myself feel numb. Like my thing is I used food as a substance. I used food to shut down and to dissociate. And, you know, like I had left brain dissociation with an eating disorder is like a lot of thinking about my body and a lot of thinking about, and I'll explain what left brain dissociation is in a second, but, and it's flight mode. But like, or is this enough? Did I eat enough? Should I have more? Should I not? Do I need to get rid of this? How much do I need to? So it's like this constant like hamster wheel of stuff. And then other of us have that with relationships. And did I say too much? Did I do too much? Did. Some of us have it with alcohol, like then, you know, okay, I can drink again on Friday, or like, you know, like some of us have this, you know, and a lot of us have the left brain dissociation with, I'm a piece of shit, I should be doing better, I'm not as good as them, and you see how this hamster wheel of just utter nonsense, distraction, cruelty from our inner saboteur is a way that we can stay numb. Because if I'm checked out into these kinds of thoughts, I'm not present. I'm not fully embodied. So remember, the body keeps the score. So what we're trying to do is to make our home, to make our body our home, and not something that I'm constantly trying to get away from or control, honestly. So I related to that about, the worst of Tom's symptoms. To me, I was like, that's actually my favorite symptom, just like, let me just be numb. I don't want to feel any of this because the feeling is too hard. I was saying the thing about one of the things that CPTSD kids or CPTSD bitches or CPTSD, those of us with CPTSD, however you want to say it, is there's like animal hijinks going on. Like what's happening? Tom's okay. Like Tom got help. It's okay, you guys. Is that they had it worse. They were in a war. They did this, they did that. Like, it was terrible what they did. And they did. It was horrible. And also shit went down for us. So we got to get busy figuring out our shit. And I just like some of the ways that, especially when I was beginning this work, I'm like, okay, sir, I did not go through what you did. And, I'm sorry that you did as well, but I am going to take this lesson and see if I can apply it to my life. So that's what we're doing. Okay. So, and he lost his sense of purpose. And I think that's another thing that, you know, for so long, like, if we have CPTSD and that kind of takes us over, we don't, you know, we don't know who we are. For me, that's like the core piece of, maybe I've said everything's a core piece, but for a core piece of CPTSD is like, I have a persona that has kept me safe. And so I do not know what's happening with my animals. Hey guys, what's this never happens. Let me just check to see if everybody's okay. Give me a second. Are you okay? What's happening with you? Where are you? Silly goose? Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. This is what I like to call my imperfection practice. This is not this will not be the most polished class you've ever taken, by design. Okay. So we lose our sense of self. Like, that's the trauma, is like, we don't know ourselves. And so of course we're not going to know our purpose. Like, there's so many stories of people, you know, getting these jobs that their parents wanted them to get or whatever. And it's like, I hate this. I actually want to be a baker. I hate this. I want to be, you know, I don't want to do any of this. I'm miserable. And, you know, it wasn't until I was like, I think I'm a counselor, that I was actually like, yeah, I found the thing. Like, I kept getting closer and closer to it. Like, all jobs I had were fawn jobs, which were people pleasing jobs. And so the one before counselor was nurse. And so it's like, this is like, I like this helping thing, but I don't like the medical part of it. Like, I like the talking part of it. And so, like, then I got closer to my sense of purpose. And when you're closer to that, but it's heartbreaking, and you feel so less than when you don't have a sense of purpose. And I just wanted to point that out as a, it's not you. You're not doing anything wrong. It's like a sense of not a lack of sense of purpose is a symptom. And so you can say, I don't have any, oh, that's CPTSD. And the answer to all of that, getting our sense of purpose and feeling less numb, is finding out who we are and having a self. And so it's like, once I started like knowing myself and acted from that place, then I didn't want to dissociate all the time, because it was kind of fun being me. Like, it was kind of fun. I actually kind of like being me, you know, laughing with this person or being my silly self, and I can be vulnerable or whatever. It's like, I actually like that. I don't want to check out from this. I like this. So that's what we're working on. Okay. So numbness, dissociation, checked out. The definition of dissociation is mental processes where a person disconnects from their thoughts, feelings, memories, or sense of identity. And so emotional numbness goes right together with, of course, we don't have a sense of purpose because we're numb. The less numb we are, the more purpose and more sense of identity that we have. And so for me, another way of saying sense of identity is sense of self. If you have a question for me, you can raise your Zoom hand, or you can just unmute. There's not that many of us here, so you can unmute. You won't be, and I welcome that. And there's no dumb questions. So just think about the ways that you dissociate. You know, like I can dissociate in the middle of a sentence. And like, one of the things that I started to do, because I had a really, really, really safe therapist, I still do. But I mean, it's a different one, but still safe, or I wouldn't be with them. Is I would say like, oh, I haven't been listening to you for the last 5 minutes. Like, can we go back to whatever you were talking about 5 minutes ago? Because whatever that was, I clearly did not like it. And so let's go back. What was I saying? What were you saying that I took this trip away from it? It's not my fault. It happens to me. We don't dissociate us. So we don't need to beat ourselves up about it. So he mentions there's also something called depersonalization. And that's kind of like, well, let me read the definition: a persistence or recurring feeling of being detached from one's body, or mental processing, like an outside observer. And that's how he described one of these vets he was working, Tom. It is like he was just, he was an attorney, and he would just kind of watch himself do, you know, do a trial, and but he was just didn't really feel connected. And of course, like, there was a lot of pain if you're going to be connected, like there's a price to that. That's kind of a joke of mine. It's just like they say, oh, like you be present. When you're present, it's a present. Okay, fuck you. Like, like I'm not present because of pain. If I could be present, I would. It's not my fault. Like, I'm working on it, bitch. Like, so that's kind of the examples of like what that emotional numbness can be. And I think it shows up differently for all of us. I also, it was also very, like, he didn't use this word, I don't think, when he was talking about numbness, but depression. I feel like that's another way of, it's hard to feel, like when you can't feel pleasure or anything, like that's another kind of upsetting kind of numbness. Okay, so I wanted to talk because, I'm interested in, it's very helpful for me to see when a trauma response is here. And so, like, I thought I would talk about emotional numbness and the trauma responses and how they might look. So let's talk about numbness through fight mode. Okay, so fight mode could be like angry, complaining. In the book, Tom says he's fighting, but not feeling anything except for his momentary rages and shame. So again, for some people, and I might say for men especially, it's easier, like anger is an easier emotion for them because it's not socialized out of them like it is for women. And so, like, women often get our hand slapped for being angry. Yes, Heather.
No, in my notes, and this was my own notes, and that the
Awesome.
numbing was the freeze response.
Yes.
But you're
Yes.
saying there's a little bit in all of the trauma responses. Is that what because I was like, wait a minute, wait, this is new intel. This is different.
Yes, so that's how I see it is, and that's when he's describing, let's see if I have it underlined. When he's describing Tom, it says like, I don't think I have that part. Aha. No, I don't have it underlined, but he's describing, it's in the numbing chapter, and he's describing how this is the quote, not he didn't feel anything except for his momentary rages and his shame. So those were the momentary rages and shame. But I look at that as, if you think about fighting, if you think about just in general, like, it's easier for me to not think of it from myself, but if I think about it with other people, it's like you've seen people fighting over nothing and fighting over stuff that we think is just
fighting for the sake of fighting to go nowhere.
Exactly.
It's like the hamster wheel of anger and shame.
Exactly.
Okay,
And
yeah.
so some people who have fight mode, their emotional numbness might come from, oh, let's just fight again. And it could also be argued that that's also for them a way to feel again, because they're so emotionally numb, that's all they can feel, or they feel like good, they get a dopamine hit from being right or whatever.
Because chaos is all they know, kind of thing.
Yes,
Okay, yep,
exactly. And
makes
if
sense. Okay.
you know somebody that in your life, you could see that they kind of have like you said, like the same fight. It's just a different person or a different society. It's like
Oh, right, they go through the same, it's like seeing the cycle of abuse just play out right in front of you with these people because they have the same intro. It's like watching like a little donut. They do the same intro, the same revving up, and it's yeah, okay, totally got it.
And that
Thank you.
helps me unhook. You're so welcome, and thank you for asking. That helps me unhook from it when I can see that this is a word my friend and I are using a lot. It's like we see the tactics of the other person. I think of that as the tactics. And you can, it's like the person today is like, can you believe like taxes and blah, 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 taxes and da, 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 and da, 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 da. I went to the what is it called? DMV today, and that's a okay. And it's like, it's like, and also, why are you always having problems? Like, like I
Right,
have
it's like,
problems sometimes, but
yeah.
it's really like 1 out of 10. It's like Uber ride, Uber ride, Uber ride, shitty Uber ride. Like great Uber ride, wonderful Uber ride, normal, neutral Uber ride, shitty Uber ride. Like we're all gonna get the shitty one at some point. You know what I mean? But it's like the fight mode person. It's always bad. They didn't drive fast enough. They didn't drive slow enough. They didn't drop me on 401. They didn't. You know what I mean? It was just all. It's like, okay, maybe you should be using
Sure.
Uber. But
Right,
oh,
like never seeing the good ever. It's like it's never sunny in Philadelphia.
that's right. And
Thank you.
and talking about what we're talking about, you can see how that is a way that somebody can stay checked out. And it even appears checked in, but it's not, they're not, it's just that kind of, yeah. So then flight mode dissociation, flight mode numbness could appear in oh, the other thing about fight mode, if they're fighting with people, they'll go to they're bad, they're bad, they're bad, and then be like, why doesn't anybody like me? Woe is me, blah, blah, blah. Then they're bad, they're bad. You can just see again, that cycle. Again, if they're never problem solving. And a lot of fawns, most people that take my classes are fawns like me. But I have met some fight mode people and who have taught me the ways, the power of fight mode, and that how it can be really powerful and good. And I have tried to adopt some of those practices for self-care. So when I'm speaking of fight mode, it's easy to think of fight mode as bad, but it is a trauma response that helps somebody survive. And they get to have that. Okay, so flight mode. So this is when I learned, Pete Walker talked about left brain dissociation. So that is like busy, 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 busy. I got to do this, I got to do that, overscheduling, blah, 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 blah. So you can see it's like, sometimes I would be like younger, I'd think about, I thought I wanted to run marathons, which is hilarious. And also just, not everybody who runs marathons have eating disorders, but it's like right up an eating disorders person's alley. It's just another thing to do, but because I obviously wasn't healthy about it, moving on. So, but I used to think like, oh, those people, they're always running in the ultra marathon. They're so cool. They're so this, they're so like, that's amazing. And then like I get better. And then one day I just had the thought, wonder what they're running from. Like what's going on? Not saying that anybody's doing it dysfunctionally or whatever. I'm sure everybody, they're just fine. And it's not my business, but I also know, having worked as a therapist, that this is a dilemma for flight mode people. This is a way they make themselves numb, and or that they can like I look at it, because I have some flight mode stuff into me. It's a small amount, but I do have some. And so it's like, let me just stay this far away from my feelings right now. Like, let me just let me run a little bit ahead. And so running away from the pain, and it's a way of dissociating from the here and now. And then a lot of times what happens to flight mode people, it just never feels enough. Even that doesn't feel enough. And then that triggers them to keep doing it. And then we have freeze mode. And so freeze mode is shutting down, is checking out. It's kind of not moving. I would put depression in this trauma response. I would put anxiety and flight mode response. And yeah, just kind of being numb. Those of us in freeze mode, we can kind of do it without help. Like a lot of us don't need substances to dissociate. Like we can really just like freeze. And that's like you said earlier, that's, that's a clear example. Like it's not hard to see that somebody who is emotionally numb and not able to feel. Like for a freeze mode person, I'll speak for myself, like if I would start to do things, I might start to feel things. So it's better for me to just to stay still. And a fawn, how emotional numbness shows up a lot of times is, I think it's also like left brain stuff, but it's about other people. Oh, I got to fix this person's problem. This person is having a hard time. Let me chase this. What do I need to do? Whose day do I need to save? Let me run. And then I don't have to, pay attention to what's going on. And then the other side of fawn is resentment. I did all this and nobody does this for me. And once again, we're just never getting to say like, I feel this, I would like this, I need this. And you can see with each of those, that fight mode and flight mode and freeze mode and fawn, like where's the sense of purpose? Where's this, that we're disconnected from it? And that's why we're trying to heal all this, because when we don't want to be those things anymore. It's not helpful. It's honestly not serving anybody. Fawn is like serving in disguise. It seems like it's serving, but it's actually not. It's actually, we continue to model. And I really think about the words are so interesting to me, because it's like being selfless, and it's like, oh, the world congratulates you. Congratulations, you're selfless. I don't want to not have a self. Like I need a self. Like that's not helpful to anyone. I want to model having a self. And just like, isn't that fascinating? Oh, she's so selfish, selfless. That's so wonderful. That's so interesting. I just had a Freudian slip. I said selfish. That's a word that's used as weapons against fawns. And so for me, having a self is selfish. So I think that's interesting. Thank you for the therapy. Okay, so let's talk about, anybody have any questions about any of that? There's no stupid questions. There's no, like, if you want to know more, if you want to talk more about Tom, anything, questions from the book. And then I'll move to talking about Rorschach tests, and then I'm going to teach you a tool. Okay, you can jump in anytime as I continue. So glad you're here. Okay. Let's talk about these Rorschach tests. It's weird to me. I don't really understand. As a counselor, I'm not qualified to give a Rorschach test. They're like fancy pants, like only psychologists can do that. So I don't know about them, but we did touch on it when I did assessments in grad school. And it's valid and reliable, weirdly. I don't know how they do that, because it is a projective test. And so the Rorschach tests are those ink blots. And so you ask a client, like, what do you see? And what I thought was really neat about what Vanderkolk said, which I didn't really know, is that, and I mean, I knew it, but it's like, I like the way he worded it. It's in our nature, it's human nature to see something ambiguous and to try to make meaning out of it. So it's a normal thing to project onto these Rorschach tests. But he found two responses to these Rorschach tests. And again, we're talking about this because this is what trauma does to the psyche, to the psyche. So one of the responses was to only see like blood and gore from what they had experienced. They wouldn't see like, maybe like what's typical of this particular ink blot is like people might see rabbits, people might see clouds, people might see like, there's a, from my understanding, don't come for me, because some of you actually might be psychologists who actually give these tests. But from my understanding, there's like predictable things. Oh, and the ink, again, from my understanding, I should have done more research on Rorschach test before I started, but from my understanding, they're the same test. Like it's the same test over and over. And if any of you have knowledge about this, please chime in. But anyway, so they'd only see the blood, they would only project their trauma onto these ink blots. Okay. And then the other ones would say in his control group, not as a control group, in his group of people that he was working with, as he started to kind of understand, like, this is not something else, because as the book tells us, and as we probably intuitively know, and we have already been misdiagnosed with things that are actually ... CPTSD. We may have other things, and there's other tools and medicines that help us with our other things, and that's great, but it's like, how do we get that thing? Oh, it's CPTSD. Anyway, so they would just say, that's just ink. That I just see ink. That's nothing. That's absolutely nothing. That's what they would say. And so you can see like the freeze response showing up, the numbness, that's nothing. And then you can also see that there's no, that what he's saying is like one of the pains is loss of imagination. So trauma kind of kills our imagination that our future could be different. It's like, I guess this is just my lot in life. Like it impacts us. And that's kind of what that was showing, is that these men, they lost their imagination. He couldn't, the ones that were only seeing the gore from the were stuck and not able to use their imagination for these ink blots. And then the other ones are like, that's just ink, that's nothing. They couldn't access their imagination, and it's heartbreaking, because it's like, and I never really thought about it before, but our imagination is a very powerful and very important thing that that we need. And I think that, understanding and learning about CPTSD, and it's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. Like, I have this. It starts to open up the possibilities that things could be different, that it always doesn't need to lead to the worst thing that happened to me. You know what? I love it when this is why, the class is called Your Body Keeps a Score, BFF, but I feel like you're also My Body Keeps a Score, BFF. So thank you. Because what I'm realizing, oh my gosh, this is huge. Okay, so a very common thing, I mean, I can't even think of the last time I had a client who didn't say this at some point. And for those of us who are members in the secret membership, that we've said it in there before, but I'm afraid of the other shoe to fall. I'm afraid of, like, things are good, but now I'm afraid of the other shoe to fall. And that's what this is. That is the loss of imagination, that it could be different. Now, one of the things to know about as a CPTSD kid is that it already fell. The shoe already fell. And now we have a tool for that, and that's called the cycle of abuse. Is that the shoe always does fall when we're on the cycle of abuse. We live in the honeymoon. Things are good, stress builds, stress really builds, explosion. That shoe falling was our life before. And so anytime we get a glimmer of hope, a glimmer of self, a glimmer of like things could be fucking different, it reminds us that no, gotta go bad. And to help me remember, actually, it already fell. And if something does happen, things are great, like things are going well, things aren't chaotic right now. This mischief has been managed. but for me to think that, oh, but it's just going to fall again, leaves me back into my loss of imagination, that it actually is different now. And I actually have a tool. And if I don't have it, I will find a bitch who does have it, because the shoe already fell, and I am going to do whatever I can to see the ink. I'm going to use my imagination with those ink blots. Again, the ink blot being my fucking future. and and then so I'm going to imagine something different, something better than just like, it's just ink, who cares. I say this a lot, like, oh fuck my life, like, I say it a lot, and it does make me laugh internally, but there's a little bit of a, that's only ink, like whatever in that. So we're gonna think about that next time I say it. But also, it's going to be gloom and doom. The ink blot of our future is just gloom and doom. It's going to be bad. It's not going to go well. So we can use our imaginations, and we can say, like, actually it can be different, and I'm going to do what I can to make it different. I am healing. Things are getting better. There's no denying that. Just think about it, like, look at your life now, knowing what you know now, and look at it a year ago. Like, look at the difference. Like, your circumstances may have changed, but like, holy shit, I don't think thoughts I used to think. I literally thought I was a hideous person. Like I felt like I should walk out into the world and just apologize to everyone who has to look at my face. Like, I am so sorry you have to see this. I mean, truly, I felt like I was a piece of shit and a very bad person, and I didn't deserve shit. I don't think any of that now. And it's even weird to me that I did, because it's just, that's how weird healing is like, I can still say I've not made any progress. That's me looking at the ink block. It's just ink. And then it's like, wait, actually, that's not true. I've made, like, let me see a year ago. Oh yeah, I don't want to be her anymore. Just take a peek at one of my journals from a year ago. It's like, oh, poor thing. Okay. Any questions about our loss of imagination? And that's the great thing about our neuroplastic brains, is that we can grow that. We get to grow that, and that's what we're doing. Any questions, any comments about that? And if not, I'll go ahead and teach you a tool, which some of you know, but for me, it always bears repeating, because it's something that comes up and it can be insidious, like we might not see it. Okie dokie. Okay. Also, if you want to throw a question into the chat, then I can, if you're not a member, I can answer it on Instagram, at another time if you don't feel comfortable unmuting. Anyway, okay. So here is the tool, and I just need to, this is a trigger warning, because it is a tool that involves animal abuse. And so I will try to speed over that part as much as, but it makes me cry. Like, I literally cried when I read this in a textbook. Like, it's like, excuse me, why would they do this? But I think part of the reason I cried, not only having empathy for the dogs that they used, if you want to get off, or if you want to mute me, because this is the thing that I'm going to end on. Just Google learned helplessness, and you can go, because I don't want you to hear something that's too painful. But you can Google it, but just don't look at the study that it's based on. Okay. This was the study. Oh, so I cried for the doggies, but I also cried because I recognized myself. So the study, I think it was done in the fucking 50s or some shit. And what they did was they put a dog in a large cage that had like a separator in the middle. And then the motherfucking scientists, they put a shock mat underneath one side. And so, so the first part of the experiment is the dog is on one side and the shock mat's off. And they lower the sectional, they lower that thing, the partition, they lower it. And the dog, boop-a-doo, goes back and forth, goes back and forth, goes back and forth. Like, that's how they did it. Then maybe that's not right. It doesn't matter. That's still fine. Next phase, or first phase, They have the dog in the crate, the partition's down. They shock the dog, and the dog jumps because they don't like that. And so the dog jumps. And that was the normal response. Okay, great. Now, these assholes, they put up the partition, and now they shock the dog again. And the dog can't jump. Like the dog, because, you know, so the dog is suffering. Okay, enough of that, blah, blah, blah. So sorry, babies. Then the next phase of the experiment is, sorry, my husband's calling me. Stop it, sir. They lower the partition again. Excuse me. There we go. They lower the partition again, and then they shock the dog, and the dog doesn't jump. The dog had learned to be helpless. He remembered before when he couldn't jump, and he just lost all hope that he could. And so he stayed on the shock mat, even though he was free. And so that's when I look at the body keeps the score. And the reason I taught you that right now is because he talks about the inescapable shock, devastating, agree, hate it. But I'm wondering, like, is it, you know, that resonates? Like, we've stayed in toxic jobs, we've stayed in toxic relationships, we've stayed and we've been in positions and in experiences where it's just like there was nothing else that we can do. And that loss of imagination that trauma takes, the loss of imagination to where, like, I wonder if there's an option, but it's like, no, you know, they lost, the trauma did that to their brain. And so, and it's like, the world tells us, the teachers have told us, the people that love us tell us, well, just jump. Just jump. It's no problem. Follow your dreams. Like, go for that. Like, do that. It's like, I'm not primed for that. I'm primed for being shocked with no escape. That's what they talk about in these pages, is these guys were, you know, it's inescapable shock. And there's no way we don't carry that with us. And so, you know, there were many areas in my life where I learned to be helpless. And then I had to go to lots of therapy, and full disclosure, like, I fully admit I did not go because I felt like I deserved it. I went only because I had a fucking kid, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to break a cycle. It was not because I felt like I deserved to get better, or that there could be any hope for me, but I literally couldn't live with myself if I didn't try to break a cycle. And I just happened to already know, like, I was in, my mom took me to like 12-step meetings when I was a teenager. And so, like, I already kind of knew that there was a world of help. And also, having an eating disorder where you can't stop doing it is also like another, like, you're fucking crazy. So again, you know, for anybody who, you know, came to this later, it's understandable. Like, you didn't even know that the loss of imagination that you could be better. So, oh my gosh. What he says in this section is, traumatized people secrete larger amounts of stress hormones after the PTSD. It says here, like, the dogs had to be dragged out. Like, I don't know if that's from here or from when I last looked at the research, but it's like, that's how bad it was. That's how bad it was. And, you know, we all, yeah. So any questions, I'm seeing this chat comment, whatever you want to call it. In the chat, I see fear, grief, resentment, and that is one of the reasons why we want to numb. Because guess what's waiting for us is this grief and then the resentments that come. But the thing is that we have tools for all of that. We have our tools for resentment. We have our understanding of grief. We, some of us, like, we understand what grief looks like now. Like, we have tools for that. It doesn't discount it when we're going through it. But for me, it's like, if I don't have a tool for that, if something is hounding me and keeping me from my imagination or my sense of purpose, then I got to find a tool for that. Or I've got to find the person who will help me with that tool for that. Or I got to find the book. Or I got to find a creative way to kind of make this easier for me. So yeah, this work is not for the faint of heart. This work is not, it's actually rare. Most people don't do it. Even our closest friends might not do it because, like, even people who are like, do the, that are doing personal growth work, they can't or are unable to do the advanced part. And for me, the advanced part, being an advanced bitch, means that I'm going to keep doing the work is really, for me, I haven't found a better way of looking at it, but it is annoying that I have to continue to work. Like, but because I just want to be Elizabeth. The moments where I can be Elizabeth, it's so nice. Like, just being here with you, present, checked in, talking about the stuff I'm really interested in, the way that I want to talk about it, is pretty fucking great. And I would have hated to have missed it, to have come on here as Miss Prim and Proper, and I know a lot of shit, and I'm going to teach it to you who don't know, like, ugh, bleh. It's like the opposite of a TED Talk. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, no, like, let's figure this out. So again, I want to open the floor for a question about anything or any comment that you want to make, or if you have a takeaway from this that you would like to let me know about or let us know about. You can just unmute and we can say hi, and you can also throw a takeaway in the chat if you'd like to. But I'm so honored you're here. Again, this is what you experienced here is very similar to what happens in the secret membership. So again, it's just a monthly class where I do this. It's just a little bit longer, and we cover a little bit more material, but there's also tends to be like more talking and more interaction, more teaching, and of specific things, and more coaching. And if you'd like to join us, please do. We'd love to have you. And the next free one probably is not going to be until October. I'm going to take a little time in September, but I will keep having the free classes. So those of you who want to keep showing up for this, or this is helpful, like, you're so invited. So anyway, well, I will close up. Any burning desires? Okay, I hope this was helpful. Love you. Bye. Bye. Thank you for the love. Thank you. Mwah, 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 mwah. Bye.